breaking news this morning. Hundreds of first responders desperately searching D.C.'s Potomac River right now for any survivors after a plane operated by American Airlines subsidiary PSA collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter.
President Trump has said the United States is in mourning.
When I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities.
Yes, that's President Trump immediately, without evidence, blaming an awful tragedy on Biden. He's confident that the reason for the crash is because companies were hiring black people and women. So he doesn't immediately say, look, this is a time of mourning. We need to figure out the details. We don't know what caused it. No, immediately political, immediately blaming his enemies, his political enemies, immediately getting you and me and people in mourning to target minorities. Now, I'm sure you're already aware of this story, but let's have a bit of a breakdown. On January 29, 2025, American Airlines Flight 5342 collided mid-air with a US Army Black Hawk helicopter near Reagan National Airport, crashing into the Potomac River. Devastatingly, there's been 67 fatalities, 64 on the plane, 60 passengers and 4 crew, and 3 soldiers on the helicopter. And unfortunately, Reagan Airport's tower was understaffed. It had 19 instead of the 30 target controllers on the night. This marks the first major US commercial airline crash since 2009. It's devastating. We don't know anything about it, and yet Trump immediately politicizes it.
Mr. President, to be clear, are you saying race or gender played a role in this tragedy?
It may have, I don't know. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities.
Just think about what he's saying here. He's implying that they're deliberately hiring people with severe intellectual disabilities and putting them in critical areas, such as guiding aeroplanes. That is what he's implying his political enemies have done. That's not true. Even under DEI, that's not how that works. You still have to be educated. You still have to have the qualifications. Unless they're looking for someone, I don't know, to be the janitor, then maybe fine. You don't need the qualifications. It's just insane. It's just so anti-human.
Psychiatric problems and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine? So Trump claims that the FAA hire people with severe intellectual disabilities, implying that they are in control of airspace, and he blames it explicitly on Biden and Obama for not prioritizing safety. I'm going to show you a few more clips of him blaming others and asserting what actually caused the issue in just a moment. But first, a bit of a timeline that you really should know, considering that he's going to be talking about the policies of Biden and Obama. On January 20th, FFA Administrator Michael Whitaker resigned after clashing with Elon Musk over a $600,000 SpaceX safety fine. Interesting. The next day, Trump issued a federal hiring freeze, potentially exacerbating air traffic controller shortages. A day after that, Trump disbanded the Aviation Safety Advisory Committee. I'll say that again. On the 22nd of January, Trump disbanded the Aviation Safety Advisory Committee, eliminating critical oversight. That's Trump's policies. He did that. And then a few days later, Trump offered mass federal employee buyouts, incentivizing retirement of experienced staff. Now, I have more comments, but let's hear more from Trump.
I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. When I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first.
As you've just seen, Trump blamed FAA's DEI policies, right? He accused the agency of prioritizing hiring people with severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and he claimed that Biden lowered standards for air traffic controllers. He said Biden did that. But here's the facts. DEI hiring existed under Trump's first term, starting in 2019. In any case, the FAA requires rigorous mental and physical exams for controllers. This job is very, very important. They don't give it to people that have mental deficiencies. There is no evidence, none, that links DEI to the crash. None. It's just happened. We don't know what caused it. It's a tragedy, a time for mourning, not for blaming people and just making up the reasons. So what we have here from Trump is that he's diverting blame from his administration's FAA staffing shortages. He's blaming the others. He doesn't want you to look at what he's done. And he's appealing to a conservative base by vilifying DEI policies, a trick that's very likely going to work because for some reason it just does. And he's used tragedy to undermine Biden's administration without evidence. There's just no evidence of it yet. We are living in such an odd time. Fortunately, Trump has had to actually answer some questions. He's been asked questions about his hasty political assumption, and his response was, well, hear it for yourself.
Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been.
It just could have been.
It just could have been. What? You get up on stage and you say that this is due to DEI, and then when you're questioned, you just go, it just could have been. What, could you just say anything when you got on stage? Could you just get on and go, Christianity caused this crash? Devastating. And I know we should be caring about the loved ones, but this was Christianity. That's what caused the crash. And then when you're asked afterwards, just go, it just could have been.
It just could have been.
This is the President of the United States. What have you done, USA?
And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden.
Again, look what he's suggesting. He's suggesting that under Biden said, you see this really important job of being a controller, of controlling airspace. We're going to remove all policies that require any kind of expertise, any kind of test. Anyone can do it now. Just go to the street, grab a random individual, preferably someone that fits our quota, make sure that they're coloured, a woman, make sure you fit all of the quotas.
Intellectual disabilities.
Bring them in and just sit them there and let them have the job. That is the picture that Trump is painting. And that is the picture that millions of Republicans seem to be buying. What? What?
We're finally getting somebody out there who breaks the silence of the establishment and tells the truth.
It's all down to minorities, is it? It's all down to minorities. Is that really what we're going to have for the next 4 years? Blame every failure in America on minorities from diverse backgrounds and people with disabilities?
The fact is, the Democrat administrations in places like California and over the last 4 years have hired people not because they're the best, but because their grandfather came from the right continent.
It's a very powerful test that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite.
The exact opposite, guys. The complete opposite.
The exact opposite.
So if you didn't catch that, Trump didn't answer her question. She said, how can you so quickly say that it's due to DEI problems?
And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
And Trump's answer was, it just could be.
It just could have been.
And then started slagging off the Biden administration. No answer. But don't worry, someone else tried to get it out of him.
I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense.
Common sense. He has common sense, guys. That's all you got to do. You just need common sense.
If you even look at data nowadays, you're a dumbass. You should just know.
Because I have common sense.
That's it. He can get on stage, he can blame it on whatever he wants, and then when his feet are held to the fire, he can just say it's common sense. What are we doing here, people? Look, all of the mayhem aside, this genuinely is insane. This is absolutely insane. You want to speak about mental deficiencies. The United States right now is mentally deficient because the man at the helm there's so much wrong with him. Unbelievable. An utter lack of humility, an utter lack of compassion and care. Nothing like Reagan himself, by the way.
A terrible tragedy took place in the capital city yesterday. The full extent of that tragedy still not yet known.
Yep, that's Reagan in a similar position with a crash, by the way, that happened in the same river. And what does he do? Does he blame his enemies? Which, by the way, he could have, because actually it was their policies that almost certainly contributed to that crash. Does he blame them? No. Why? Because he's a goddamn man. That's why. He can stand up there and you don't have to blame anyone else, especially if you don't have sufficient reason, which Trump doesn't, by the way. Reagan actually did. Didn't do that. Nope. His job is to unify people, to recognize that this is a tragic event and that Americans need to come together.
Yesterday we saw a partnership, yes. The agencies and departments of government responsible in times of emergency were there. The heroism of the firemen in the icy waters is well known to all of us.
Trump, complete opposite. You have elected a worm for a president.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities.
We got a long way to go, boys and girls, and that is why I am going to do my best, at least, by creating content from afar. So expect more politics from me.
Now let's rediscover America. Not the America bound by the Potomac River, but the one beyond it. The America whose initiative, ingenuity, and audacity made us the envy of the world. The America whose rich tradition of generosity began with simple acts of neighbor, caring for neighbor. We passed our reforms in Washington, but change must begin at the grassroots, on the streets where you live.